Mr. Antolini, am I audible?
You are, Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. We're going to start the meeting in 3 minutes' time. We're just giving everybody a chance to get on. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Good morning, everyone. It's time for our meeting. It's now 10 o'clock. Welcome to the Select Committee on Public Infrastructure and Minister in the Presidency meeting today, the 3rd of June. In a very, very wet Cape Town. For those of you who have the privilege
Recording
to be
in progress.
It is really wet, and I trust you are all in a space where it's warm and cozy. Mr. Mthalini, before we go to the apologies, I'd like the members just to give an indication that we can adopt the agenda of the meeting. Today's meeting will be regarding the briefing by the Attorney General of South Africa on the audit information for the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. Thank you, Mr. Mthalini. We'll then do deliberations on the presentation by the Auditor General. After that, that'll take us to about 11:45. After that, the Auditor General's team are welcome to take their leave if they so wish. We will then go on to the presentation on the additions to the Select Committee Strategic Plan and Annual Performance Plan, which should take us up to 12 o'clock. We'll consider those additions to the Performance Plan and the Strategic Plan. And then we do have some minutes to adopt at the end of the meeting, but we should be done by 12:30 if our time management is in order. So with that, can I please get a proposer for the adoption of the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. I propose that we adopt the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Skeerkogel. Are there a seconder? I see the hand of Honourable Molokome. Thank you very, very much for that. Much appreciated. Honourable members, Mr. Delaney, are there any apologies?
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members and colleagues, officials from AGSA. We have received 3 apologies, Chairperson. The first apology is for Honorable Biriat. She's writing an exam today. The second apology is Chief Whip Muimang. He is in Zimbabwe attending the SADC Parliamentary Forum's meeting. And the third one is Honorable Kaiser. He's attending the SC on finance. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ntalini. That's duly noted. I think let us go on then to the introductions. First of all, I'd like the committee members to introduce themselves. When I read your name, can you just please indicate that you are present and maybe just put your video camera on for record purposes. Honourable Molokome, our committee whip.
Good morning, Chair, and all members on the platform. I'm present in the meeting, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Skeerkogel.
There we go. Good morning, Chair. Igor Skeerkogel, permanent delegate from the Free State. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Honourable Makasini.
Morning, Chair. I'm present to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Peter.
Morning, Chair. I'm a permanent delegate from Eastern Cape. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honourable Kaunda.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members and the Office of Auditor General and our support team. My name is Mkolis Kaunda. The then situation and dispensation gave me the name called Thomas. I'm from KZN, permanent delegate. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that eloquent greeting and very good morning to all of you honourable members. Can we now go over to the introductions by the Attorney General's team? Good morning, Ms. Matanzima. I believe you will be leading the delegation. Over to you for the introductions.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chair. Good morning to all the honourable members and also to the team AGSA. Honourable Chair, my name is Nombakamo Matanzima. I am the business unit leader that oversees the audits of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, the Brand SA, as well as the Statistics South Africa. I am not alone within the call. I do want to introduce as well, with your permission, Honourable Chair. My team is Sipesihle Mlangeni. If you can just show your camera. Sipesihle Mlangeni will be leading us on the presentation today. He is responsible as a senior audit manager at the Auditor General, responsible for the Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation Audit, and including last year Brand SA. I've got Mary Ann Whitford, who is responsible for the audit of Stats SA. I also have Rodney Mataba. If you can also show your camera, who is responsible for the audit of the Stats, of Brand SA. So those are my delegates, Honorable Chair, from the Auditor General. I'm not sure you will let us know if we can start with the presentation after the introductions, and then we can do so.
Thank you very, very much, Ms. Matanzima, and very welcome to you and your team. Our committee is certainly looking forward to our engagement this morning. So once again, it's my privilege to welcome you all. I think today's engagement represents not only a constitutional obligation, but a critical opportunity for us to examine the health of our country's accountability ecosystem as reflected in the Auditor General's audit outcomes for the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation and its related entities. I think we are tasked with the oversight of institutions that sit at the very heart of strategic government coordination, evaluation and service delivery. Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Stats SA and Brand SA. I think these entities are not just the administrative nodes, they're also the gears that should ensure that our national plans and budgets and performance metrics speak to each other with coherence, urgency, and with purpose. This year's audit outcomes present a bit of a mixed picture, I must say. Brand SA continues to shine with a clean audit outcome, which is a testament to internal discipline, leadership stability, and sound use of internal audit mechanisms. And for this, I think our committee extends its commendation and congratulate them. But however, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation and Stats SA has not fared as well. The regression in the Department of Planning and Monitoring and Evaluation's audit outcome from a clean audit to unqualified with findings highlights weaknesses in expenditure management, internal control, and consequence implementation. Similarly, Stats SA remains mired in material findings and systematic issues, including a backlog of unresolved, irregular, and fruitless expenditure cases, some dating back several years. These outcomes are not merely technical, they also have real implications for policy coordination, data reliability, and ultimately for the people we serve. What emerges most clearly from the Auditor General's presentation for me is a culture of stagnation. Recommendations are noted but not actioned. Plans are drafted but not internalized. Positions remain vacant, oversight committees lie dormant, and repeat findings accumulate without resolution. So we cannot allow inaction to become institutionalized. Let this report, for our committee members, let this report be our guide when we engage the department during the presentation of the annual budgets in the next term. In closing, in my foreword, I just wish to extend our sincere thanks to the Auditor General and her team for diligent work in compiling this report. The ongoing commitment to strengthening financial governance and transparency in the public sector is invaluable for our oversight function as a committee. The rigor, the clarity, and the integrity of the Auditor General's findings equip this committee with the tools needed to engage meaningfully with departments and to ensure that accountability is not a principle in theory, but also a practice in fact. So I thank you very much for allowing me to do that forward. And Ms. Matanzima, I'd like to hand over to you and your team to proceed with the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chair, for those opening remarks. I really appreciate that we can see that our presentation we will be briefing now the committee on the audit outcomes for these three entities for the 2023-2024 financial year. And for us is to, one, to equip the committee with the areas of focus. As you all know that as the Auditor General, we have embarked on our Culture Shift Strategy 2030, where we want to see our aspirations to see the public sector that is really characterized by the culture of performance, transparency, accountability, as well as the institutional integrity, and all with the aim of ensuring that there is improved, the lives of the citizens are improved. Today, as you normally have said, we will be briefing the committee on the three entities, which is the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, which is quite critical as the custodians of the National Development Plan. So it's important for this committee to exercise oversight in terms of this entity, in terms of monitoring, to ensure that the targets that have been set for government whether from the MTDP or from the MTSF or from the National Development Plan, are being achieved, so that by 2030, our aspirations as the country are being achieved. And also Brand SA is playing as well a very critical role in terms of ensuring that they reaffirm the South African brand in a global stage. And this year it is even more critical as the country is also hosting the G20 summit. So it is going to be instrumental to ensure that the South African brand is reaffirmed in the global stages. And for Statistics South Africa as well, the important role they play in terms of providing us with the data that is sufficient for the government to plan. So we are going to be presenting to yourselves on the key focus areas where the committee can focus in ensuring that they exercise the oversight on the areas where these entities are not doing well, and where they are doing well, they can ensure that those controls are embedded going forward. Without further ado, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members, I would like to provide Sipesihle time to lead us with the presentation and then afterwards I will hand back to you, Honorable Chair, for any further comments and questions. Thank you so much for allowing us today to present.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I will then commence with the presentation. Honorable Chair, we'll start with the mission and vision of the Auditor General. The mission of the Auditor General is that the Auditor General of South Africa has a constitutional mandate, and as a supreme audit institution of South Africa, it exists to strengthen our country's democracy by enabling oversight, accountability, and governance in the public sector through auditing, thereby building public confidence. And our vision is to be recognized by all our stakeholders as a relevant supreme audit institution that enhances public sector accountability. Honorable Chairperson, the next slide is a slide that reflects our accountability ecosystem. This is a network of all individuals that have an important role to play in relation to the role that the departments have around performance, around service delivery, around oversight, and ensuring that there's institutional integrity, and that ultimately the aspirations that we want to see by 2030 in relation to our cultureship strategy of good performance, accountability, transparency, and institutional integrity are achieved. So you will note, Honorable Chairperson, that on the right-hand side, we have support and oversight, and the Select Committee on Public Infrastructure and the Minister in the Presidency is included under the umbrella of Parliament and Provincial Legislature and Oversight Committee, which have an important role to play in exercising oversight on what the departments are doing and monitoring what the departments are doing, and in ensuring that there is oversight that is exercised in relation to the departments. I won't go into details in relation to that.
I do apologize for interrupting you. I just wanted to ask if it's possible for you to change the view of the presentation into full mode, so we can see the full slide that you're talking to on the screen. At the moment, we're seeing the slide you're talking to on the one side, and then your next slide on the other side of the screen, which makes it very difficult to follow what you're talking to on the main slide. If you don't mind, sorry.
All right. Thanks, Chair, for that. Please confirm if you can see the full view.
No, it's still in the next slide view.
At this stage?
No, that's still the same.
Okay. Confirmation, Chair?
Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Then I'm moving on to the next slide. Please confirm if the view is still the same and that you are able to see.
Yeah, that's very good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for that, Honorable Chairperson. In terms of the portfolio ecosystem, as Mr. Masanzima has highlighted, we have the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, which is a coordinating ministry, a department that is mandated to plan for government, monitor service delivery, and periodically evaluate whether service delivery objectives are being achieved. So the role of this department is instrumental, and it is a department that is responsible for implementation of the National Development Plan, monitoring whether the National Development Plan targets are being achieved, and that government service delivery is accordingly planned for in an appropriate and a systematic manner. We also have Statistics South Africa responsible for research and statistics. They are responsible for the collection, production, and dissemination of official statistics in South Africa, and produce reports in relation to population related matters. Lastly, Brand SA, which is a brand and marketing agency of South Africa and official marketing agency of the country, with the mandate of ensuring that the brand reputation of the country is protected and that there is an improvement in relation to global competitiveness. Chairperson, just to reflect on the recommendation that we had shared with the portfolio. First, we had a recommendation that deals with addressing challenges of fragmentation in the government system of planning. Our recommendation was that the minister would need to advocate for an integrated planning across all spheres of government to promote better coordination, collaboration, and alignment of planning, monitoring, and evaluation across all three spheres of government. And our reflection in terms of the progress in relation to that recommendation, Chairperson, is that we are aware that the Development Planning Legal Framework, which is a bill that the department has crafted, is yet to reach Parliament because it's currently being processed by various cabinet systems so that it can be approved and then submitted to Parliament. Now, the importance of this bill, Honourable Chair, is that it seeks to give the DPME enforcement powers in instances where a recommendation is made around the inclusion of certain indicators that are linked to the mandate of a particular department that they would have reviewed the strategic plan and APP for, and give the DPME enforcement powers and a recourse in an event that departments do not implement those recommendations. So this is an instrumental tool that the DPME has recognized to shift the culture around planning system of government to ensure that planning is not fragmented and that when government plans, they plan in a well-coordinated manner. The second recommendation relates to an improvement in the performance management of directors general and heads of departments. In the previous years, we had reported that currently the guidelines that have been issued by the DPSA do not make it compulsory for acting heads of departments and acting directors general to sign performance agreements, which then creates a gap and a vacuum in terms of accountability. So our recommendation was that the minister would need to jointly oversee and collaborate with the public service and administration minister on the work between the DPME and DPSA to enhance the performance management system to include acting incumbents, and that would be acting heads of departments in the provinces and acting directors general in a national sphere of government. So the progress on that, Honourable Chair, is that there were inputs that were provided by the DPME to DPSA for the refinement of the guidelines. However, that has not been finalized as yet. And then lastly, the recommendation was to follow up with accounting officers and accounting authority to ensure that our recommendations, broadly speaking, to matters of audit outcomes are implemented so that the audit outcomes can ultimately improve. The progress in relation to that, Honourable Chair, is that we've noted stagnation in overall audit outcomes, as you've also noted in your opening remarks, that prevent DPME and Status A from being in the clean audit category. In terms of the overall audit outcomes, Chair, reflecting in the administrative term, which is the 6th administration, You will note that at the beginning of the administration, there was only one auditee that had a clean audit, and at that time it was the DPME, and both Brand SA and Status A were in the unqualified with findings category. In 22-23, there were two auditees that had clean audits. It was the DPME and Brand SA, and only Statistics South Africa was in the unqualified with findings category. And then in the 23-24, only Brand SA sustained their clean audit. DPME regressed to unqualified with findings. Now, the regression when it comes to the DPME was due to failure to prevent irregular expenditure, which was a material finding under the umbrella of expenditure management. And this was largely attributable to failure to ensure that officials adhere to delegations of authority when approving transactions. At States SA, the audit outcome remained unchanged, and this related to material finding that was identified in relation to a material inconsistency between an indicator and its target. Status A also had material findings when it comes to consequence management and expenditure management. Now, the key root causes that we attributed to stagnation in audit outcomes was one, the slow response by management to address deficiencies and findings from the previous year. It was an inadequate review of performance reporting documents, and that was the annual performance report to ensure that it is consistent with how the departments had planned at the beginning of the financial year. It is the inadequate review of annual performance plan to ensure that it includes all relevant indicators and targets, and that indicators and targets are useful. This is specifically to Statistics South Africa. And then lastly, vacancies in key positions are weakening the control environment. This again relates to Statistics South Africa. Now, Honorable Chair, when it comes to the Brand SA, we attributed the ability of the entity to sustain its clean audit to sound financial and performance management and the disciplines that are in place and enforced. Also, we noted that the internal audit division was able to perform quarterly reviews on performance information and financial report and ensure that our recommendations are implemented. In terms of culture in the portfolio, Honorable Chair, from a performance perspective, all three auditees were able to achieve at least 90% of their performance targets as set out in the annual performance plan. However, in relation to Statistics South Africa, notwithstanding that they managed to achieve more than 90%, as indicated earlier on, there was an issue with a target that did not relate to the indicator, which may then compromise the usefulness of their performance information. From a transparency perspective, we do note, Honorable Chair, that all three auditees have an ability to submit financial statements that are credible, that do not contain material errors. So we do then commend the leadership of these institutions for being able to produce credible financial statements, which would then enable transparency and oversight. In terms of accountability, Honorable Chair, and when it comes to DPME and Statistics South Africa, both departments had material non-compliance relating to failure to prevent irregular expenditure. At Statistics South Africa, there were also challenges relating to consequence management, given that there is a significant backlog of irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure cases that have not been dealt with, which then compromises accountability in relation to Statistics South Africa. So our recommendations to accounting officers was that the accounting officer should ensure that vacant positions are timelessly filled to ensure continued effectiveness of internal controls, and this speaks basically to the Statistics South Africa department. Accounting officers should enhance reviews of annual performance planning and reporting processes and make use of internal audit functions to effectively provide a level of assurance. Chairperson, this relates to DPME and Statistics South Africa. We also recommended to accounting officers that all cases of consequence management should be swiftly dealt with. Now, all cases of irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, as highlighted earlier on, that needs to be dealt with and processed accordingly in terms of the framework for irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure, should be done and speedily confirmed and concluded on. Lastly, Chairperson, accounting officers should ensure that action plans are monitored and that the actions that are included in the action plan include daily controls, so that controls are not only implemented at the end of the quarter when financial reports needs to be produced, but on a daily basis, daily reconciliation, weekly reconciliation, regular reconciliations needs to be undertaken, so that if there's challenges or if there's deficiencies, those deficiencies can be identified and rectified or remedied in a timely manner. Our key message to the Select Committee in relation to these insights on the overall outcome is that the Select Committee should regularly engage with the Executive Authority and accounting officers on measures taken to improve the culture of performance and accountability in the portfolio, as well as the implementation of our recommendations. Honorable Chair, I'll then move to strategic themes, specifically on coordinating ministries, given the mandate of the DPME. We reflect on the 5-year medium-term strategic framework, which is a period of 2019 to 2024, and the journey that the department took to ensure that those medium-term targets are implemented and are achieved. The department undertook extensive work on the revision of the development planning framework legislation, and this, Chairperson, is what I spoke to earlier on the bill that the department crafted to ensure that the department is given enforcement powers so that there's recourse in an event that departments do not implement their recommendations in relation to the planning documents, which is a strategic plan, and the APPs that they review annually. So that was done, Honorable Chairperson, but we do understand that it is in various stages to ensure that it ultimately gets to Parliament and then recommended to the President to be signed as a law that will be enforceable. The second relates to revised strategic plan for strategic plans, revised framework for strategic plans and APPs, which is a process that the DPME undertakes on an annual basis through a review that is undertaken by the DPME of the strategic plans and APPs for national institutions and 6 of the 9 provinces. The 3 provinces that the DPME does not review annual performance plan and strategic plans for is KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng, and Western Cape. And that is simply because those provinces have sufficient capacity to undertake the review of the strategic plans and APPs through their offices of the premium. And then lastly, Chairperson, the department, and I'm referring to DPME here, did produce 2 MTSF monitoring reports on an annual basis, 2 operation package reports annually to Cabinet on the implementation of the medium-term strategic framework. And also they produced a report for the implementation of the NTP 10-year review, which I'll speak to later on. From a planning perspective, we continued to observe fragmented planning, uncoordinated planning, and budgeting processes that are not well coordinated with how government is planning. And these then result in inadequate integrated planning for government as a whole. And then when it comes to the issue of assessment of 10-year review, which I spoke to earlier on, Chairperson, the department made an assessment of how far the country is in the attainment of the NTP target as set out in 2012 when NTP was crafted and approved by Cabinet. What was evident from that review, Honorable Chair, is that unemployment, inequality, growth rate, and investment continues to be challenges for the country, and some of these elements have actually regressed. Now, starting with unemployment rose from 25.4% in 2012 to approximately 32.9% in 2022. Now, it means that from an unemployment perspective, the country has regressed. Now, the target for NTP was to bring unemployment to 6% by 2030. But the direction that we've seen is that instead of moving towards the 6%, we've gone to the opposite direction, and we've actually worsened in terms of our unemployment rate in the country, specifically for the youth. Persistent inequality. South Africa continues to have high inequality with a Gini coefficient still remaining at 0.69, which demonstrates that the country still has a significant challenge when it comes to inequality. The growth rate, which was 0.99 at the time of conducting the evaluation of the NDP, versus the baseline of 3.3% in 2012. So when we started in 2012, the growth rate was at 3.3%, and it has basically declined to just under 1%. Now, our target was for the country to reach 5.4% by 2030, but we've gone backwards and basically regressed to below 1%. In terms of investment as a percentage of GDP dropped significantly from 19.6% in 2012 to 14.7% in 2021. Now, this has a direct impact in terms of economic growth and the creation of jobs. If there's declining investment, the growth rate is going to be low. There's going to be unemployment, because for employment to be created, there has to be growth associated with it. Now, what this picture is telling us, Honorable Chairperson, is that as we move into the 7th administration, as the DPME implements, in partnership with other departments, the medium-term development plan, which will take us to the end of the NDP period, which will take us to 2030, the country will need to ensure that all of the targets that have been missed are closely monitored. And I think the role of the Select Committee is going to be instrumental in providing support from an oversight perspective in relation to these overarching matters that continue to either decline or remain stagnant. Honorable Chair, from a performance management perspective, I have highlighted the challenges in relation to acting incumbents, DGs, acting HODs that continue to not have performance agreements because the guidelines that exist do not compel them to have performance agreements. We do understand that the work between DPME and DPSA is in progress to refine those guidelines and make it compulsory for the acting incumbents to have performance agreements and performance assessment undertaken to promote accountability. Now, what we wish to highlight to the Select Committee is that the Select Committee should follow up on measures taken by the DPME to address fragmentation in government-wide planning and formalization of performance management for acting DGs and HODs. And it will be critical that the Select Committee also closely monitor the achievement of targets on the newly adopted medium-term development plan on a regular basis, as this is the medium-term plan that takes us to the end of the NDP period. Honorable Chair, in terms of quality of reporting, I did highlight earlier on that all three of the entities and departments in this portfolio were able to produce credible financial statements, and we commend the leadership of the institutions for doing that and being able to produce high quality financial statements. We do, however, Honorable Chair, wish to highlight that Statistics South Africa had an overdraft of 1.12 billion and also incurred unauthorized expenditure amounting to 128 million due to overspending on programs 1, 3, and 6. And these are also linked to overspending on lease vehicles and fleet services for the income and expenditure surveys linked to the 2022 census. So the impact of this is that, one, in terms of producing credible financial statements, it then enables oversight and transparency so that oversight structures such as the Select Committee are able to interpret and obtain information that is credible that can be used to exercise oversight in terms of the financial reporting for the portfolio. And our key message is that while the quality of submitted annual financial statement is satisfactory, the Select Committee should follow up on the accounting officer for Statistics South Africa on measures taken to prevent unauthorized expenditure that was reported in the previous year. From a performance planning and reporting perspective, Honorable Chair, what we noted is that only Brand SA was able to produce quality performance report to the Auditor General that did not require material adjustment to correct. DPME and Statistics South Africa had material misstatements in their annual performance report upon it being submitted to the Auditor General for audit. However, DPME was able to correct the material misstatement that was identified. Statistics South Africa, at the point of reporting, still had a material misstatement in relation to their performance report. Now, the root cause for this, Honorable Chair, is that at the DPME, this was due to inadequate reviews that were undertaken in the performance reporting process, although they were able to subsequently correct the annual performance report. At Statistics South Africa, it was due to inadequate review of the strategic plan documents to ensure that performance management systems and related controls are adequate and effectively describe the performance planning, monitoring, and measurement, review, reporting, and improvement processes that ought to have been conducted and managed. So the impact of this is that where performance reports are unreliable, it then disempowers the accountability ecosystem, disempowers oversight structures such as the Select Committee from making a meaningful assessment of where the department is from a performance perspective. When it comes to inconsistencies between set targets and indicators, it then makes it difficult to plan for the achievement of the indicator if there's no clarity around what needs to be achieved. Consequently, it may result in reported achievement not providing useful information that can be used for proper decision making. I've highlighted, Honorable Chair, that all of the three departments and entities within the portfolio were able to achieve more than 90% of their targets in the annual performance plan. I'm not going to go into detail in terms of the targets that were not achieved. We have provided that for information purposes. Just important to highlight is the impact of targets not achieved. In the case of the DPME, the target that was not achieved was due to an early achievement which happened in the previous year. So it was a timing issue, although it had an impact on the performance report for 23-24. In relation to Brand SA, the impact is delaying obtaining key insights on domestic perception, and this is because of the research studies that were not conducted in a timely manner due to procurement processes. And then lastly, at Statistics South Africa, the underachievement in the delivery of statistical report can have a negative impact from a government planning and budgeting perspective. As Ms. Matanzima highlighted earlier on, the role of Statistics South Africa is important to enable government to adequately plan for service delivery as they conduct the necessary work to get to the figures around how many people live in a particular province, how many people live in a particular region. From a compliance perspective, Honorable Chair, I have highlighted earlier on that Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation had a material finding on failure to prevent irregular expenditure. Brand SA did not have any material misstatements, and then Statistics South Africa had a material finding on prevention of irregular expenditure and failure to implement consequence management linked to the significant backlog of cases of irregular expenditure, as well as frivolous and wasteful expenditure that have not been dealt with. This slide, Honorable Chair, then provides an overview over the last administration in terms of movements in the annual irregular expenditure figures. You will note that in 2019, annual irregular expenditure in CAD stood at 83 million. There was a significant decline in 2020-21, and this was during the period of COVID. It dropped to just over 1 million. And then in 2021-2022, it significantly increased to 250 million, further increased to 377 million in 22-23, and then there was a significant reduction in 23-24, where the annual irregular expenditure for the portfolio stood at 19.5 million. The biggest contributors for 23-24 is Statistics South Africa, which incurred 13.4 million, as well as the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, which incurred just over 6 million. We also provide information of the pillars of procurement. that were breached. Now, the Constitution provides that the procurement for government should be equitable, fair, cost-effective, transparent, and competitive. What we observed is that at Statistics South Africa, the pillar that was breached for the irregular expenditure in CAD is the pillar of competition, and that is because 13.4 million worth of goods and services were procured without obtaining at least 3 written price quotations. Now, that limits competition as such. The pillar of competition was breached. At Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, there was a procurement of 4.8 million that was not in line with CETA requirements, and the pillar that was breached is the transparency pillar. And then lastly, at Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, there's 1.3 million of irregular expenditure incurred in relation to failure by official to adhere to delegation of authority. We provide a similar analysis in terms of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, noting that the portfolio does not have significant levels of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. However, it is important, Honorable Chair, considering the resource constraints that we have as the country, that fruitless and wasteful expenditure is prevented and not incurred at all. So while the levels are not significant, I must emphasize, Honorable Chairperson, that even 10 rands of fruitless and wasteful expenditure is too much for any of the organs of state. So it is important that the departments work towards prevention of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. The top contributor in this instance is, again, Statistics South Africa, which incurred 230,000 rands of fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And this was mainly due to cancellation and change of flights. DPME also had fruitless and wasteful expenditure of 20,000 for travel bookings, no-show. So it is clear from this slide, Honorable Chair, that the fruitless and wasteful expenditure in this portfolio is largely linked to travel and related activities, cancellation of flights, travel bookings, no-show. In terms of consequence management, specifically as it relates to irregular expenditure, we also then provide an overview of how the closing balance of irregular expenditure continues to increase for the portfolio. And it started at 154 million at the beginning of the administration term and stood at 895 million at the end of 23-24, and that is March 2024. The biggest contributor for the irregular expenditure that has not been dealt with is Statistics South Africa, which accounts for 95% of the 895 million. So they account for 840 million of the 895 million irregular expenditure not dealt with. Brand SA has 31 million of irregular expenditure not dealt with, and then 23.6 is attributable to DPME. Now, the reasons for irregular expenditure not dealt with, Honorable Chair, is that for DPME, about 23.6 million was under investigation and awaiting condonment at the end of 23-24. For Brand SA, that was also the case, investigated and awaiting condonment. Investigations that are still in progress relates to Statistics South Africa, where 515 million of all cases was still under investigation. And then those cases that have not yet been investigated also are at Statistics South Africa with 325.7 million having not been investigated. And this is linked to the material non-compliance on consequence management that we highlighted earlier on, Honorable Chair. We provide a similar overview in terms of consequence management for fruitless and wasteful expenditure, noting that Statistics South Africa, again, is the biggest contributor in terms of fruitless and wasteful expenditure not yet dealt with 14.1 of the 14.3 million fruitless and wasteful expenditure not dealt with attributable to Statistics South Africa. However, Chair, it is important that I highlight that the majority of the fruitless and wasteful expenditure that relates to Statistics South Africa was incurred about 10 years ago. So it's not a recent fruitless and wasteful expenditure. Predominantly, it's instances that occurred well over 10 years ago. From a governance and stability, Honorable Chair, for starting with Brand SA, Brand SA did not have a board of trustees for a significant period in the 23-24 financial year. The board of trustees was appointed in March 2024, and they also had key vacant positions at the level of CEO and Chief Financial Officer. And during that period, they were overseen by acting incumbents. We have noted positive developments, Honorable Chair. One, recognizing the appointment of a board of trustees at Brand SA in March 2024, as well as the appointment of a permanent CEO, which happened in January of 2025. At Statistics South Africa, they had key positions that were vacant, which were reported in previous years, in relation to 2 deputy directors general and the position of the chief financial officer. In relation to the position of the Deputy Director General for Corporate Services, the position has been vacant for 8 years. And the position of the Chief Financial Officer, which was vacant for 2 years, has since been filled with effect from the 1st of March 2025. So we have taken note of those developments in relation to the filling of that position of the Chief Financial Officer with effect from 1st of March. So this is important, Honorable Chairperson, because you can also then establish the link between some of the deficiencies that we are observing to the outcomes and the vacancies that may have contributed to the deficiencies that we are picking up in that department. Lastly, when it comes to the PME, the department did not have an audit committee for 8 months, and that was from the 1st of August 2023 to March 2024. And we have noted the appointment of the committee in April of 2024, and that the committee continues to exercise oversight over financial administration, performance management, and compliance. So the committee for audit-related matters has been appointed at DPME. And our key message in relation to the governance and stability matter, Honorable Chair, is that the Select Committee should exercise oversight in the filling of key vacant positions, especially those that are remaining at Statistics South Africa, and follow up with the Executive Authority and accounting officers to receive an update in terms of how these matters are being dealt with, in terms of how the instability in the portfolio is being addressed. In terms of root causes and recommendations to the accounting officers and accounting authorities, I had earlier on, Honorable Chair, highlighted these in earlier slides. I'm not going to go into detail, except to highlight what our recommendations to the accounting officers and accounting authorities, as well as the executive authority, were in relation to addressing these matters. We recommended the filling of vacant positions. We recommended that investigations be concluded in a reasonable manner in relation to instances of non-compliance that resulted in irregular expenditure and frivolous and wasteful expenditure. We recommended that action plans be embedded in daily controls to ensure that there's regular monitoring of whether the controls are achieving the desired outcome. And then lastly, the audit committee, through the work of internal audit, should be able to review performance reports to ensure that there's consistency in terms of the billing documents and the reported performance information, and that performance results are reliable, so that oversight structures such as the Select Committee can then be able to receive reports that are reliable. Then our message to the Select Committee, Honorable Chair, is that the Select Committee should, on a regular basis, monitor and regularly follow up with the Executive Authority in relation to the filling of positions, having timely monitoring systems that are embedded in daily activities to prevent internal control deficiencies, and that there's proactive risk and early warning mechanisms that are put in place to prevent instances of non-compliance, instances of material misstatements, monitoring of consequence management, especially in relation to supply chain management and planned achievement of set targets, noting that even though they are achieving 90% or more than 90% of the targets, it's still important to ensure that the other 10% that is missed is achieved. so that there's 100% achievement of set targets, as that has an impact on service delivery. And then lastly, Honorable Chair, is to continue to follow up on measures taken by the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation to address fragmentation in government-wide planning and the formalization of the performance management for directors general and heads of departments. Honorable Chair, that brings us to the end of our presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there any closing remarks from Ms. Makasini?
Thank you so much,
Sorry, Ms. Matanzima. Sorry, my apologies.
No problem, Chair. Thank you so much, Spe, for that presentation. Honorable Chair, I think Sipesihle Mr. Milangeni has highlighted the key areas that the committee should exercise oversight, which is a key as well in terms of these entities in implementing or executing or fulfilling their mandate. And we cannot overemphasize the importance of filling key vacancy positions, specifically from the State SA, because of the work that they are doing for the country. So it's important those vacant positions on the key positions are filled. We also highlight the area of consequence management, and where the importance of where there was irregular expenditure or fruitless and wasteful expenditure. It is important for the accounting officer or authority to investigate and to finalize those investigations. And most importantly, a consequence management should be effected in that regard, as well as ensuring that the select committee continue to exercise oversight on the service delivery targets of these institutions in terms of what they are mandated to do so, as it is quite important to ensure that at the end of the day, the lived experiences of our citizens are improved. And that is my overall message. And thank you so much, Honorable Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Matanzima, and thank you very much, Ms. Blangeni, for that presentation. Indeed, a sobering presentation, and I think it will stand our committee in good stead. Honourable members, it's now your turn to engage the Auditor General with regards to questions for clarification on this presentation. Let's do it by show of hands. I just wanted, before we go on to questions, welcome Honourable Mabebu. You've joined us, I see, and also welcome Honourable Ntanzima. I think you've just joined us at the meeting as well. You weren't here in the beginning, so we recognize your presence. Honourable members, can we do a show of hands, please? Questions? I've got Honourable Skeerkogel to start off with. Honourable Peter, thank you. I see your hand. Just keep your hands up. Honourable Kaunda. Honourable Bebu. No further hands? Good. Okay, let's then start with Honourable Skeerkogel. Thank you very much.
My hand is up, Chair.
Oh, sorry, I saw there's an abbreviation, so I thought it's Honourable Mabebu. It's Honourable Molokome. I've got your hand. Thank you. Honourable Skeerkogel, you're going to start.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think there are a lot of the questions that most probably will be asked to the HE. I don't think they'll be able to answer. I think my starting comment would be that we should get those three entities to ask direct questions relating to their report, because some of these things is the entities that must report. But I just wanted to find out a couple of things from the AG, and it's based on some issues that I've saw in across all three entities. The first one is about irregular and fruitful expenditure. So how would these entities rather implement real-time compliance and monitoring to strengthen their supply chain management training, for example, or pre-approval conditions, or putting established conditions? So what would be your recommendation for them to improve those things to prevent that? Then about performance information on the inconsistency. So it seems like, again, and especially that's probably where the Department of Planning, Monitoring, Evaluation comes in. But it's like to see that there is during their planning, because it seems like during their planning phases, the reporting, the APPs and their logic models, there is not a clear coordination between those things. Then also with I saw that there's these vacancies in critical positions, especially in Stats SA and Brand SA. So how can we, through the AG or through your suggestion, to get them to prioritize to filling these positions with fixed contracts, but doing that through Treasury? And then my last question, Chairperson, I see again, it's a lot of these issues that have been highlighted, and I've got other couple, but I'm mindful of time. The lack of consequence management. So with the AG, what have you done in other departments or in your suggestions, or how would you solve it to ensure that they establish internal deadlines for case resolutions, quarterly updates, like, or how so that we implement, they could give a quarterly update to us, and then to have an internal audit within the department, then having like regular follow-up audits. So do you do that with them to prevent them not having clear audits, or making sure that these entities that like especially Stats SA and Brand SA, it's very important entities for South Africa, the economy, the growth, and everything where we are sitting now, and especially with the president's SONA focusing on job and creation, like how do we make sure that these people deliver with internal capability? As the AG said last week, you guys train good students there, so we must maybe send the students to these, especially Stats SA, because I see that's a very concerning one. But thanks, Chairperson. I raised my case there.
Thank you very much. Auditor General, I think let's do it this way. You're welcome to answer the questions, and then we'll move on to Honourable Peter after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honourable Skierkofer, with your questions. Just to respond to the very first one pertaining to the irregular expenditure, and what we as the Auditor General can recommend to ensure that there is preventative controls around this area. One of the key role players within the accountability ecosystem is the internal audit, as well as the audit committee. So it is important that particular role players to play the very critical role in terms of monitoring the root causes and root cause action plans throughout the year, to ensure that when they perform the supply chain management processes, those processes are fit for purpose and they are complying with the law. So it is important that the internal audit, as well as the audit committee reviews, we have engaged these key role players to ensure that their reviews are able to identify this and ensure earlier before they can be to prevent the non-compliance. So you mentioned the very important part, which is the real time. We're seeing it as well in other departments where they are doing a real internal audit, is proactively doing that assurance work before on supply chain to ensure that there is compliance before it can be awarded. So it's important as well for these entities to do so in that regard. We have recommended the importance of the internal audit, as well as the audit committee, to play that critical role around the supply chain management processes. When it comes to the performance management, yes, it is important to note that yes, DPME does review all the APPs as well as the strategic plans of the departments and some entities, and therefore there were areas where we identify inconsistencies in the performance of management of, I think it was Stats SA. So what we are doing as Auditor General in that regard, we are proactively reviewing the annual performance plans of the departments as well as the entities for key entities for the 25-26 already, where we provide them with our insights and observations and things that can be adjusted accordingly to ensure that the performance plans are also valid, complete, and also accurate. So this is a work that we are proactively performing from the Auditor General to assist the departments as well as the entities in terms of their performance plans. But we also note that DPME is also doing the work and recommend to different departments on the areas where they found some errors or some omissions. Sometimes those are adjusted and sometimes are not adjusted accordingly by the specific departments. Hence, we are raising the issue of when they recommend to various departments on their findings, it's not always being implemented because they don't have those kind of enforcement powers to enforce a particular department to address, to include their recommendations on their APPs. So it's something that we've been raising, and we are working very closely as well with DPME to ensure that the annual performance plans that are presented to Parliament are also accurate and valid and complete. From the vacancies point of view from the Stats SA, the Stats SA and the Statistics General has done a lot of work working very closely with National Treasury to ensure that the key vacancies are approved and as well to ensure that they was approved for filling. And that approval was obtained from National Treasury, and therefore it is now, since it has been approved for them to fill those key vacant positions. So it's in the process of filling those vacancies. As we have seen now, the CFO key role, which is the CFO, has subsequently been filled. So we will continue to engage the various stakeholders and role players, whether it's accounting officers and accounting authorities, and including the audit committees, to also put this thing, and the audit committees as well, it is part of their key agenda item to make sure these vacancies are filled, because to ensure that there is no extended acting incompetence in these key positions, to ensure there is accountability at the end of the day. So as the Auditor General, it's something that is we're putting forward to the audit committees to discuss with the accounting authorities, and also report as well in different parliamentary structures to ensure that they exercise oversight in that regard. So it is something that I know the Stats SA is ensuring that the implementation thereof, as the approval was now provided by the National Treasury. I think the other one that you have, Chair, Honorable Skegokgel, was relating to the consequence management. As the Auditor General as well, we are collaborating as well with the internal audit to ensure that their work that they are doing in terms of the quarterly reviews to ensure the controls are in place. But in terms of the consequence management, it is really up to the accounting officer to ensure that its investigations are done on time, and as well as there's consequences for the NAB, depending on the outcome of that investigation. And the reason really for Stats SA was one relating to the lot of vacancies. The people who were supposed to do these investigations, and therefore there were vacancies in those key positions to do that. But we are seeing some progress in terms of now there are the investigations have been commenced, and some of the investigations are also in other with other public bodies. So there is some movement, although it's taking a little bit longer to get there. But I will just, before I hand over to my team to see if there's any areas that they just want to augment, our Honorable Chair, if you allow me, and then we can take other questions and comments.
Please proceed. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Just to add, Honorable Chair, specifically to the question that was asked about how do we assist the departments to have proactive measures to prevent instances of irregular expenditure. And I'll refer specifically to the instances that were identified at the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation as a result of failure to adhere to delegation of authorities. We have had,
Sorry, Honorable Peter, can you just mute yourself, please?
so what we did, Honorable Chair, was to have regular engagements with the accounting officer to understand what could be the root cause for officials not adhering to delegations of authority. And what was clear was that there were officials that did not have full understanding of how the delegation of authority metric ought to be interpreted. So it was more of an interpretation issue. And we have seen the department move out from that era of deficiencies around delegations. We are beginning to see an improvement in terms of adherence to delegation of authorities. And we are also seeing audit committees, which have an important role to play, exercise more oversight from a delegation perspective, but we are also seeing the audit committee exercising oversight from the perspective of risk management, because risk management function is also another critical unit that exists in these departments that ought to proactively identify areas where non-compliance may arise. So it's all those functions that are critical in the departments that also need to be taken into account. And we've emphasized that in the case of the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and we're beginning to see an improvement in relation to adherence to the system of delegation of authority. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anyone else want to make a comment from your department?
Yes, Mr. Putehi, you can come in.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Chair, and good morning to honorable members. Mrs. Madanzima has covered most of the questions from the honorable member, but the way I wanted to come in is that as the Auditor General, in line with our strategy, so we are also on our side deploying some influence tactics, which will assist us to ensure that we walk the journey with the accounting officers in order to assist them to ensure that there are preventative controls within the department. And I think one of the tactics that we have is that we perform interim audits. This is before the annual financial statements are actually submitted. So this gives management early warning signs, because we are able to pick up on some of the areas that they need to look into. And in that case, then they are able to put corrective actions in place. And this, in the long run, could also assist the departments to ensure that there are corrective actions in place. So those are some of the areas that we do. And we engage on a regular basis with the accounting officers to ensure that we also follow up on some of the recommendations that we left, so that we also follow up to ensure that there is implementations of our recommendations, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Peter, I think you're next.
Thank you, Chair. It seems as if AG is not an easy job, this one. But I've got only one question, AG. AG, as the Constitution of South Africa guarantees your independence, stating your impartiality, it also guarantees your powers and your functions of being without fear, favor, and prejudice. Section 188 determines that you must audit and report on the financial account statements of all local municipalities. My question is, AG, after you declare your findings to relevant institutions to carry further with the investigation, and you pick up nothing has been happening from those institutions, what do you do then? Did you investigate those institutions, or did you wait for further instruction from the president or from the stakeholders invite? I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Peter. Over to you, Ms. Matanzima.
Thank you so much, Honourable Peter, for that question. In terms of our audit, yes, we are mandated to audit, and while we are executing that audit, we are required to be independent and impartial, and we do that work without fear or prejudice. I totally agree. Yes, in terms of the current situation, in terms of the investigations, the Stats SA took a little bit longer to undertake the investigations as required by the law on the investigating the irregular expenditure that was incurred during I think the past 2 or 3 years. What we have done, Honourable Peter, is that we have brought this matter to the attention of the Statistician General, in terms of their responsibilities to investigate when there is an irregular or fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And that has been has started the work in terms of the investigations, and also the counting officer has also including other public bodies to assist him in these investigations. And therefore, as Auditor General, we can't investigate the work that is already being investigated because the accounting officer is responsible to do that, and he has started to do so, of course, with the assistance of other public bodies, as it is investigations, and internally there were no because of the vacancies, some of these were not done on time. So that's where we are. We are looking forward. We are following up with the accounting officer in that regard, in terms of the process that is currently being followed, and what are the finalization and when these will be finalized by the accounting officer, and what, if those are finalized, what are the recommendations, and if those recommendations are implemented. That's what we are, Honourable Peter, that we are currently doing from the Auditor General perspective. And we will also follow up with other audit committee, as we normally do with our quarterly engagements in that regard, and also with the executive authority. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Matanzima. I think Honourable Kaunda, you next. Honourable Peter, maybe just remove your hand, if you don't mind.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Let me join you to welcome the report and also commend Auditor General for the job well done. This is one institution that does not disappoint in executing its constitutional mandate. So we really wish to commend this entity of government for ensuring that there is work that is being done, and is being impartial in terms of execution of its work. Chair, the report is clear, and it requires us to engage with the department and raise those concerns and the specific entity, Statistics South Africa, to raise the concerns that even Auditor General shared with us. But there is one question which I just want to ask, Chair. Firstly, on a lighter note, because I'm not aware, how does the Office of Auditor General get audited? So who audits you as an office? Because I'm sure you'd be shining, you'd be leading by example in terms of all these principles of audit that other entities and departments are failing to adhere to. Then the second one, Chair, my big concern is that the government has become a big spender in terms of infrastructure, in terms of social development. If you look at how much government spends on monthly basis in terms of expenditure patterns, you'll realize that the private sector follows government in terms of expenditure. So how do you make sure in doing comparison in terms of the performance in regard to socio-economic transformation by all departments. Having taken a directive from the State of the Nation address, where the President has made mention of the fact that all departments must make sure that they transform the economy of this country. He even made mention of women accessing 40% of procurement in government. So how do you weigh such performance by each entity and departments? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kaunda. Over to you, Ms. Matanzima.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Kaunda, for that questions. Yes, as the Auditor General, we are also being audited, Honorable Chair. We are audited by other auditing firms, and then we also have to account as well in Parliament in our in SCOWEC, where the Auditor General will present our audit outcomes as the Auditor General, which and also the Deputy Auditor General in our audits of the Auditor General, and then account to SCOWEC in terms of the performance as based on our key targets. So yes, we are audited on an annual basis, and then annually we have to as well present those outcomes to Parliament, to a committee, which is the SCOWEC committee that oversees the work of the Auditor General. In terms of the State of the Nation address and the priorities that are being announced by the Honorable President, as the Auditor General, one of the key things when we proactively review the APPs and also by the TPME is to ensure that the APPs targets and also the key performance indicators also include those SONA commitments are part of, and the SONA commitments in terms of the APPs of different departments, as well as the entities, depending on their mandate thereof. And it is the responsibility as well of the Department of Planning and Monitoring to also, they also provide a tracking mechanism, monitoring mechanisms in terms of those SONA commitments to ensure that they are being implemented accordingly, and they are also reported to the Presidency accordingly. So it's one of their indicators as well as DPNE to monitor the SONA commitments, and those SONA commitments as well are also implemented. But the various departments, depending on their mandates, are also included as part of the key performance indicators. I see, Honorable Chair, there is Putehi who wants to come in as well to also respond. Thank you.
You're welcome. Please continue.
Apologies, Chair. It was an old hand. I think Mrs. Matanzima has covered me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I saw the hand. I wasn't going to say anything. That's good. I must just congratulate you earlier, Ms. Matanzima. It's not many presenters that attempt to pronounce the surname of Honorable Skeerkogels, and you've done it very well. So we give you 9 out of 10 for that. Honorable Molokome, it's your turn.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning again, and honorable members on the platform, the Office of the Auditor General, and all officials in the meeting. Chair, the questions that I wanted to ask, Honorable Skeerkogel has covered most of those questions, but let me acknowledge and appreciate the presentation made by the Auditor General. I think last week, Chair, we had the Auditor General presenting in terms of all the local municipalities and the district and metros that we have. But I think the same challenge that is in this report is about the issue of the fruitless expenditures and wasteful expenditure, and also the issue of the consequence management on the presentation itself. in page 17. I think Honorable Skirkochen and also Honorable Peter has touched on the very same issue. But I want to maybe the office to clarify me in terms of the increase that is happening almost every year when they audit. If you can check in 2019 to 2020, the irregular expenditure was at around 154. Now we are speaking around, sitting around 895. So it means there is no consequence management that is happening in all these entities that we are talking about. But I think most of the questions, Chair, will be asked to or directed to the very same entities that we are talking about, because the Auditor General might not be able to give us answers that we might look for as the committee. But the good part is that they were able to indicate where, as the committee, when we do the oversight, we should stick or direct our questions and oversight on. I think this was right to have this meeting with the Auditor General first, so that we have a better understanding of what is happening in those entities, so that really when we meet with them, they have to account. The issue of the vacant positions, the other one is sitting, the CFO is more than 8 years now. It can't be right. And if you check the reasons why there's no consequence management on the slide 17, they'll tell you that is because of the vacancies, the open vacancies. My question is, so let me say we fill those positions tomorrow. So are we saying those new CFOs, they'll be able to account to something that happened when they were not there? Because I see that on bullet 3 on the right, when you go down, Chair, at Stats SA, they are saying those are old cases that are taking long to finalize due to vacancies within the departments. So my question is, a new person, will he or she be able to account for something that she doesn't know of? Because in my mind, I don't think that this should be a reason why those cases are not dealt with. So that's one of my worry, Chair. And I think most of the questions will direct to them, to the entities. The Stats SA, sometimes you'll find, I just want to understand the relationship when they contact their states, whether they work hand in hand with municipalities, because some of us, we are from there, and we know that there are some loopholes when these stats are made. So the credibility of what they are giving the Auditor General is sometimes questionable. So I think, let me just pause there, because some of the questions the Auditor General won't be able to answer. But I'm just glad that we now have a view, and we are able to know where to direct our oversight. So thank you very much for the presentation. And I see that the departments are improving, even in terms of the findings that one department received the unqualified audit outcomes without findings, but the two entities, they have findings, but is unqualified audit reports. So at least they are doing very well. So thanks, Chair, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Molokome. Ms. Matanzima, yeah, I think I'm also going to have a question about vacancies, but let's is there any comments regarding Honorable Molokome's input?
Thank you so much, Honorable Molokome, for your comments as well as the questions. Indeed, you are asking a very critical question But what is key in terms of the filling of the vacancies is, one, it will create stability within the entity, and two, it will also expedite the investigations, because now there will be a dedicated individual to ensure that those investigations are done and are also followed up, and they are monitored in terms of, and then the timelines are also given to the investigations to ensure that those are actually closed. Then the outcome of those investigations, which is the recommendations that are going to come based on those investigations, it will be then the accounting officer to ensure that he implement those recommendations from the responsible personnel. So even if the people have left are no longer there, they were not there in that particular year, but it will create the stability as well as the expedition of some of these key investigations to happen. I see that there's a team here for SA who also want to weigh in. Honorable Chair, if you also allow, thank you. I'll start with Mary Ann and then quickly to come through. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair and Honourable Members. I am the Senior Manager that's responsible for Stats SA's audit currently. I think that what's very important for the committee to also take note of is, yes, we have vacancies at key positions, but there are also a lot of vacancies that are in the actual operation side of Stats SA. I know that more than likely the department has actually brought to the attention of the committee the fact that they have had a moratorium on the appointment of, I think in the current year, when we're looking at it, it's about 700 vacancies within the department. I stand under correction, but I think that is what would be coming out in the new annual report that we will obviously be auditing now. So in terms of that, they have got a real backlog. And I think that, exactly what Nompakama did indicate today is as well that filling of vacancies will cause stability. And I think that just in terms of the CFO position that was not filled for a while, because of the requirements of an acting position, you had a rotation permanently taking place. So in lots of these positions, we have acting people who are then actually in the position for a maximum of 6 months. So the ability to make a difference when you're in an acting position is a lot more challenging than to actually do it once that you have the accountability and you're actually in the position full time. So I think that just from my insights at the moment, having a permanent CFO, I know it's only been from the 1st of March, but we have seen the accountability taking place. And I think that just from the other positions that are also integral to the key positions that Nompakama also spoke about that are going to be filled, I think it's crucial because, for example, the Chief Operating Officer, the human resource person is also acting, and they've been acting, as you could see, for not that individual, but that position has been vacant for 8 years. So I think they are really sitting with a huge challenge on the Statistics SA side, and we are really engaging with Statistics SA to be able to get down to the real root cause of their problems that they have. They are discussing with National Treasury the way forward for them to actually deal with the process. But I think the one positive that they could share with us was the fact that they did get approval to be able to appoint certain of the key positions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Potegi.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, on my side, I echo the same sentiments as my colleagues. I just want to speak about the increasing irregular expenditure amount. As Ms. Matanzima has indicated, it is quite critical that the irregular expenditure gets investigated because that's one of the prerequisites for the departments to apply for condonation. Because some of the requirements for condonation is that the department needs to prove that there were proper investigations, and where colleagues officials were found to be in the wrong, and a consequence management had been implemented. And also, it is true that the department has been facing funding challenges, and we have seen those engagements taking place between the Statistician General as well as the National Treasury. And I think recently we have seen some movements where there are some funding that is being assisted to the SG, to the state SA itself, to ensure that they cover some of the vacant positions. And what you've seen also is that there is a lot of backlog when it comes to the investigation are done, but the problem comes when it comes to implementations of some of the recommendations due to some of the key vacancies that have been vacant, because you find that the reports are being channeled to one position, which is also in the acting, which is the DTG, corporate services. And in the slide also, we are indicating that that position has also been vacant for 8 years. So you can see that there's a lot of weaknesses when it comes to filling of vacancies. But yeah, the context of it is that there has been funding challenges, which then the SG has been trying to address. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Ms. Tanzima, if I may, and I think it's a thread that runs through not just these departments we dealt with today, but other departments that we have oversight over as well, is the staggering amount of vacancies, and it always ends up being an issue when it comes to performance accountability when there's an acting position. So I would really like to get your position on whether it's not time that we have legislation or regulatory, excuse my English, forgives me at the moment, regulatory amendments to be made to enforce that we have performance accountability when we have acting positions, because I think that in essence is a massive problem. I'd like to get your view on that. And then also where consequence management has failed, for example, in the case of Stats SA, is there a specific threshold or a benchmark that the Auditor General used to escalate matters to higher authorities, for example, the Public Service Commission, or then in our case, Parliament? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chair, for that, for those two questions. Just to start on the driving accountability on the incumbents that are acting currently. I think when we presented our briefing to the committee, we did note that currently there is a guidelines that are currently being reviewed by both the Department of Public Service Administration and also the DPME on how they can include to ensure that the acting incumbents are all, especially the HODs and the DGs, are also having the performance agreements being signed. So as much those guidelines, once those guidelines are finalized, and then this issue of accountability when a person is acting will probably be addressed. But what I would from the committee perspective is to just follow up with the DPME on how far are they in terms of those revisions, in terms of the guidelines, and to also take into considerations the acting and cabinets, especially at the DG and HOD level. That's what I would suggest from the committee to ensure that process is finalized and so that we can drive accountability to the acting incomes. That's one. And then the second one, Honorable Chair, is relating to the Public Service Commission. We are working. Public Service Commission is also one of our of the audits that we perform. So we do work, collaborate with them in these areas of concern within the government space. And we collaborate with other public bodies as well, or constitution chapter 9 institutions to ensure that there is accountability across. So yes, it is the work that the Auditor General do to collaborate and to generate those insights, or we provide them with the insights on the areas that can be improved. So we will continue to do so to close those gaps as we identify during our audit processes. I will just pause there, Chair, and then Ms. Demlangeni to also come through to augment your responses.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I also just wanted to elevate the framework that government has implemented in the form of professionalization framework, which has an objective to improve professionalization broadly in government. And one of the aspects that is being looked at from that professionalization framework is the aspect of performance management. And that will deal broadly with performance management, not only at senior management level, but at all levels, to ensure that there's adequate performance management that is implemented. But there's other aspects of professionalization, which includes recruitment, qualifications, ongoing training that ought to be undertaken to ensure that there's professionalization in government. And ultimately, that will take government to greater heights from a service delivery perspective. So I wanted to highlight that, Chairperson, because that is part of our conversations that we are having on an ongoing basis with the key institutions that are responsible for the implementation of this framework. DPSA is part of those. DPME is also part of the implementation. So that is other aspects that are happening in the system around improving performance management across government. Yes, there are those guidelines that are being refined, but broadly looking at other levels of officials within government, there's also that framework that the committee would also need to maybe have interest in terms of how it is being implemented from an oversight perspective. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mlangeni. Honourable members, our time management has been really good. Thank you for that. Are there any one of the members that has the need for a follow-up question based on the original question to the Auditor General's office? Just by show of hands, if there's anybody who would like to do a follow-up. I don't see any hands. Thank you very, very much. I think just a word of thanks to you, Ms. Matanzima, and your team from the Auditor General's office. I always say in the National Council of Provinces, because of clustering, we have one committee that overlooks and has oversight over many departments. So it's really difficult for us to become specialists like our counterparts in the National Assembly, who have one committee for 10 members, and all they do is they look after that one committee for the term of 5 years. So we have to be jacks of all trades. And I think in saying that the engagements that we have with the Auditor General prior to our engagements with the departments are absolutely worth its gold for us as a committee. So from our side, I'd really like to thank you for your inputs here and for giving us a roadmap on how to do our oversight when we now go and engage with the various departments. So for that, we'd like to thank you and thank you for your time. We are now going to go into the next part of this meeting, which is the presentation on our strategic plan. So with that, I'd like to ask you, you're welcome to stay if you want to, but I'm sure you have better things to do and more important things to do. So you are welcome to take your leave then if you so wish. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, and thanks to your team. Honourable members, that takes us to the next part of our meeting. We are going to go on to the presentation on the additions that we've done. As you can recall, we had a meeting where we went through our strategic plan, which was presented by Dr. Clark. We all had an opportunity to do inputs into that plan. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. And Dr. Clark is gone, and she's incorporated those inputs into our committee strategic plan and our annual performance plan. So, Dr. Clark, I'm going to hand over to you just to show us the work that you've done, and thank you for that in the meanwhile, and to highlight the changes to our plans, please. Then we will allow for some engagement on that. Thank you very much. I think, Dr. Clark, you're muted.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honourable members and everyone on the platform. Our strategic plan stretches up until the 2029-2030 financial year. And members will note that that is the deadline for the attainment of the National Development Plan targets. So the next 5 years will be crucial. After the strategic planning session, the chairperson's forward was added to the strategic plan to set the tone for the committee for the next 5 years. And that will be my starting point this morning. I will then draw members' attention to the areas where member inputs have been captured in the strategic plan. And in closing, I will present the proposed oversight areas for the 2025-2026 financial year, which will be our annual performance plan. Chair, if I may switch off my screen for the remainder of the session.
Yeah, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So for our strategic plan, all committees are required to reflect on the vision, mission, values, and mandates of Parliament, as was presented during the strategic planning session. So in respect of a chairperson's forward that was added, the forward reflects on the portfolio, the departments that falls within the portfolio of the select committee, that being the Department of Transport, Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and the public entities reporting to those ministries. It also reflects on the fact that our select committee looked at the legacy report of the 6th Parliament, and that those recommendations were adopted on 30 October 2024 and incorporated into the strategic objectives as presented below. The forward also looks at the Parliament's oversight priority plan, the 7 broad themes set out in the oversight priority plan, and then hones in on the social services theme, as well as the social infrastructure theme that links most closely to the portfolio of the select committee. In strengthening the oversight abilities of the select committee, the accountability and oversight model of Parliament's recommendations was also be taken up, in that evidence-based decision-making will support the work of the select committee by developing relationships with coordinating and monitoring departments, such as the Office of the Auditor General presented to us this morning, institutions supporting democracy, stakeholders such as research centres and communities directly affected by oversight areas. The forward also acknowledges that because of the structure of select committees in the NCOP, as the chairperson rightfully alluded to now, select committees cannot afford to take a silo approach to oversight because of the various departments and public entities falling within the portfolios of select committees. And in its strategic plan, the select committee has therefore taken a thematic approach to oversight role, identifying cross-cutting oversight areas. In honestly reflecting on the work of the select committee, the forward concludes by saying, South Africa's infrastructure challenges are vast, but so too is the resolve of the committee. and whether the committee will be engaging Transnet on freight logistics, PRAS on rail recovery, or the DPWA on asset optimization. The select committee will ask the hard questions and demand measurable progress, and that the committee does so not as critics, but as custodians of the public interest. The work ahead will require more than oversight. It will require tenacity, courage, and a commitment to push beyond compliance, party politics, and into genuine delivery for all. The chair reminds us that the strategic plan will be our guiding light in the quest to provide impactful oversight, and the chair makes a call for us to get to work. So the vision, mission, values, and mandate, including the strategic priorities of Parliament, and that is as it was presented during the strategic planning session. In the situational analysis, as reflected on during our strategic planning session, we look at the portfolio, the departments within the portfolio of the select committee, and the list of public entities are tabulated. So that is for Department of Transport, Public Works and Infrastructure, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. The committee also has to note executive strategic planning, ranging from the State of the Nation address up to the medium-term development plan, which sets out the strategic outcomes, interventions, and intervention indicators for government departments. Our select committee was also tasked with tracking certain recommendations that have been made in the state capture report. So coming to the strategic objectives, and as the chairperson directed, I will be drawing members' attention to the areas where the members' inputs have been captured. So in terms of the first 5 strategic objectives, the objectives have not been amended, so it is exactly as the committee has discussed during the strategic planning session. In respect of the strategic objective relating to public participation that informs the oversight program of the select committees, here members have had asked that priority areas from constituency officers, for example, and provincial officers should also find its way within the strategic planning of the committee. So one of the oversight activities that therefore have been added is filtering in oversight priorities from members and as identified by members. The strategic objective related to the coordinated execution of the government mandate. We were asked to add in the Wellesley Bridges program that is being implemented between the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, the Department of Transport, and the South African National Defence Force. In respect of integrated transport planning, members requested that we add in oversight activities related to small harbours, the air traffic and navigation services, as well as interventions aimed at municipal airports being used as gateways for the movement of illicit goods. Drugs specifically was mentioned. In relation to the strategic objective on conducive intergovernment relations, no oversight activities were added by members in respect of that indicator. Just this bigger. Okay. When it came to our targets for the next 5 years, the first change I was requested to make was to change the strategic objectives into aspirational objectives. So rather than saying how we want to do the work of the committee, it's now been amended to reflect what will we see if the select committee does execute its oversight mandate as it should. So it would now be a coherent legal framework and no longer contributing to a coherent legal framework, for example. Honourable Mzimande also asked that I look at the baseline for the 2024-2025 financial year, which I have included so that a comparison can be drawn to how we have performed in those particular indicators. Yeah, I would just like to mention two things, Chairperson and honourable members. The first is that the Select Committee was constituted after the start of the financial year. So for the 24-25 year, we only had 3 as opposed to 4 quarters, which means the committee had less time to do its work. I also want to add that the previous year was focused more on member induction. So introduction to the portfolio departments, for example, and their mandates and their historical performance. So now with that foundation being laid, the committee can now progress to the further aspects of its oversight function. Members had also requested, there's an indicator that speaks to the number of oversight priorities derived from public participation sources. Initially, my recommendation was 1, and members had asked that I increase it to 3 for each year. So that's not the number of meetings, that's the actual oversight issue to be identified. So for example, we'll see when we get to the annual report what the oversight issues is that we will drive for this financial year. It all stayed the same. Okay, so when we come to the annual performance plan for the April 2025 to March 2026 year. Yeah. So in respect of the percentage of legislation referred to the Select Committee, we've already begun processing the marine oil pollution bill. So for the Q1, our attainment has already been, at 100%. The processing of the legislation will continue into Q2. The committee has just been referred the Economic Regulation of Transport Amendment Bill. The processing of that bill will start in the next quarter. We've also identified regulations drafted in terms of the Economic Regulation of Transport Act, and that will happen in the 4th quarter. With regard to the indicator on percentage of international instruments referred to the Select Committee, no instruments have yet been referred to the committee. So there's no target quarter for that. Should it happen throughout the year, the target will be allocated to the correct quarter. With regard to the number of engagements on the 5-year strategic plans, there's a target of 7 set for the 2nd quarter. The consideration of annual performance plans and budgets, also a target of 7 for the 2nd quarter. Members will recall we said when it comes to the strategic plans and the annual performance plans, we want to do at least the 3, I can call them mother departments, so DOT, DPWI, DPMD. So that will be the standing departments. The public entities will then change depending on what the priority of the committee is for a particular year. The consideration of mid-year performance monitoring reports. So this is a new intervention that has been introduced in the Select Committee. That will be in the 3rd quarter. The annual reports will also be in the 3rd quarter. And the engagement on the implementation of the state capture report, that will be in the last quarter. In relation to public participation in forming legislation, so we've had one bill that was being referred to the Select Committee that far, and members will recall that the public hearings on the marine oil pollution already took place last year. So there's no target date set for that. Number of oversight priority areas derived from public participation sources. The 2 that has been identified and that we reflected on during the strategic planning session is the items that was the inputs made by the Biodiversity Law Centre. So that's engagements on the compensation framework following oil spills and the continuation of offshore bunkering. Members will see here that there's engagement on constituency oversight priority areas. So for here, the Select Committee will depend on Select Committees, will depend on members, my apologies, coming to the select committee and identifying oversight areas that the particular constituency or the particular province, for example, have highlighted as an oversight area. So it's not yet defined. As the year goes along, it will then be defined. Engagements on the implementation of the national development plans, that will happen in the fourth quarter. In regards to the engagements on the sustainable delivery of government facilities and accommodation, we already have for this term a briefing on smart cities. We will look at Infrastructure South Africa on strategic integrated provinces within projects within the portfolio of the select committee in the fourth quarter. And we will ask the PMT to come back to us on its optimization strategy and data analysis. We will, during the third quarter, look at the DPMI and the release of land for land reform purposes. But the suggestion is that the committee goes further than just the release of land and actually inquire into, has the intended purpose for the release been met? So if it has been released, for example, for the construction of a school, what is the progress in terms of the implementation of that project so that land doesn't just lay fallow? On the engagements on integrated transport planning, the committee has already met with Department of Transport on integrated public transport networks. We've met on scrapping of illegally converted panel vans and the implementation of taxi recapitalization downstream projects. We will later this term look at the air traffic and navigation services, on the reliability of communication, navigation and surveillance systems. And we will also get a briefing by AXA on its strategic plan and its airport improvement plans. On the engagement on intergovernmental projects, the engagement with eThekwini municipality, together with the Minister of Transport and stakeholders, that will happen once we've got a firm commitment from the Minister of Transport on the date that Minister would be able to commit to being at the meeting. That is targeted for the third quarter. It's also proposed to then have a joint meeting with the Select Committee on Cooperative Governance and Public Administration on the implementation of the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent, and that will happen in the fourth quarter. The oversight visits to projects within the portfolio of the Select Committee, that is not yet defined. So what usually happens is closer to the time a province is identified and departments then get approached to ask for the list of provinces within that particular, for a list of projects within those provinces. So the target is for 4 in the third quarter and 4 in the fourth quarter. The second term of Parliament, no provision has been made for oversight visits because of the focus on the budget process at the moment. So that for oversight visits would most likely happen within one oversight week. The briefing on the number of engagements on the expenditure of conditional grants. The first will be a briefing by the DPWI and the Department of Transport on conditional grants. The second engagement will be again a joint meeting with the Select Committee on Cooperative Governance on the expenditure of infrastructure conditional grants by provincial and local government. So those is your municipal infrastructure grant, for example. Both of those are targeted for the third quarter. The last indicator is the international engagements. So the international study tour to South Korea and Ethiopia. Apologies, there's something there. The international study tour to South Korea and Ethiopia is scheduled for the third quarter, meeting our target of 2 because South Korea will count as one it's one country and Ethiopia will count as another country. Risk identification and mitigations that was discussed. We discussed about members. We discussed the impact that the delays in the procurement services for proofreading and typesetting and editing of bills, for example, might have on the work of the committee. Because currently there is no appointed service provider, so the procurement process has to be undertaken in terms of identifying three quotes, and then running through the procurement process. So from the committee support side, mitigation measures will include realistic timeframes for project management, particularly for the processing of bills, to not set unrealistic timeframes for the consideration of particularly your final mandates. The delays in responses to committee recommendations and resolutions. From the committee's support side, mitigation measures will be strengthening tracking and monitoring of resolutions and recommendations. In terms of budget allocations, members asked that the various financial years, the proposed oversight activity should be budgeted for. So the starting point was the 2025-2026 financial year. So if you look at the cost per meeting times the number of meetings that is identified, we are looking at 163,000 Rand for committee meetings. Oversight visits, assuming that there's 2 visit weeks, that will be 1.6 million. And then pending the approval of the financial and political applications, one would look at 3 million Rand for the international engagements, that being the study tour. So that would be for 25 to 26 to 29, 2030. That is the projected expenditure we have for our select committee. We finished the strategic plan by looking at the human resource support to the committee, with Mr. Shlupeka Mteleni as being our committee secretary, myself as content advisor. We have all congratulated Mr. Ben Lwazi on his appointment as committee secretary, sadly a loss for us. Our researcher, Mr. Tolani Simelani, who's been deployed to our committee. The executive secretary to our committee is Ms. Soliswa Mkutakana. Our communications officer, Ms. Yolisa Lando. Legal services, our committee support gets assigned per piece of legislation. So in closing, members, that is the 5-year strategic plan and proposed annual performance plan for the select committee. I would like to reiterate that the strat plan and the annual performance plan guides the select committee in its oversight role, but the committee is not limited to the oversight activities contained therein. One of the values of Parliament is responsiveness. So as oversight issues emerge, they will be incorporated into the oversight work of the select committee as well. Thank you very much, Chair and members.
Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. Before we go over to the adoption of this performance plan, are there any further comments from any of the members? I see applause from Honorable Kaunda. Thank you very much for that. I think in the absence of further comments, I just need to officially say on this platform that our committee wish to extend our sincere gratitude to Mr. Lwazi Ben for his service to this committee and congratulate him on his new appointment. He's gone over to our sister committee, and there again is our loss, as you said, Dr. Clark, and we hope to fill that position as soon as possible, so that we can function fully as a committee as soon as possible. But congratulations to him, and we thank him for his service. Honourable members, then just my vote of thanks also goes to Dr. Clark and Mr. Mteleni. And Zuliswa, thank you so much for all the hard work you've done to bring this strategic plan and annual performance plan to our committee. This plan is indeed, once adopted, going to be the roadmap for our committee for the next, the remainder of the term. There's 4 years left, and everything that we do will be informed by this. So it's going to be a very, very important strategic document for our committee to work off of. So for that, we just like to say thank you very, very much. And with that, I'd like to ask for a proposer for this strategic plan and annual performance plan, please. Thank you, Dr. Skipvogel, and I get a seconder by the hand of Honorable Kaunda. Honorable members, we do have to adopt this, so I'm going to ask, are there any of the members who want to vote against the adoption of the strategic plan and annual performance plan at this stage? No votes against. We then take it that our committee has adopted the strategic plan and annual performance plan for our term. Honourable members, thank you very much for that, and we're looking forward to making sure that all the boxes that we have promised to fulfill and tick are indeed ticked by the end of our term. With that, we're going to move over to the consideration and adoption of the previous meeting's minutes. Thank you very much for flighting them, Mr. Mtulini. That was the meeting that we held on the 20th of May. It was the briefing by the Department of Transport on the progress and interventions in relation to the integrated public transport networks, and the progress towards meeting the deadline of scrapping of illegally converted panel vans and implementation of the taxi recapitalization downstream projects. We're going to the attendance. Just raise your hand if there are any issues on page 1. We go down to page 2. Page 2 deals with the opening and the apologies. And then we go on to the proceedings. And then page 3 deals with the committee's deliberations. And that takes us on to page 4, where we considered and adopted the minutes of the previous meeting. I don't see any hands. Can I have a proposer for these minutes, please? Thank you very much, Honourable Skipvogel. Can I have a seconder for the minutes, please? Honourable Peter, thank you very much. These minutes are then duly adopted by our committee. Honourable members, that concludes the business of today. I'd just like to invite you all for a nice warm cup of soup. You just have to go to your own residence to make it. But please enjoy it on behalf of myself and the committee staff. Thank you very, very much for your participation today. Please stay warm, and we're looking forward to the next meeting next week. Thank you very much.
Are you going to Rimbesa?
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I just adjourned the meeting. You just related that comment, Honourable Nzimande. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
I'm your neighbor. I'm coming for that soup. Thank you.
Recording stopped.